Good morning. Welcome back to Ecocentric Homestead. I got a chance to clean up the garden and decided I should just give a little quick swing around and show you interesting part. Now this grapevine, well established. Josh from Citystead had one of these and he just recently cleared it back. He said he had enough room for about 2 more garden beds. These and the milk cartons, they've been doing quite well. In here I did lose one though, see that? Now I don't know why. In fact, you know what? He's not actually lost. But maybe he got a little weak being in the center there. And slugs really like eating the leaves, so it is still alive. I just noticed. That's Russian mulberry, so I know where they're going to go. I'll plant them out in October. The Siberian Pea Shrub, it's been growing well when the temperature was down. Of course, when it was up 34 degrees, it stopped growing. But there is something wrong with the leaves. It looks like it's a small leaf miner, but I don't know for sure. This is the green gauge, so I'm really happy that that's growing there. And a birch leaf pear. I really got to find out what I'm going to do with these. Make an arbor, find a tree to plant them against, because otherwise it's going to turn out like that grapevine I just showed you, and it's just going to be a mass of leaves and vines. I wanted to do a video talking about the tomato vines. Now I'm growing them differently than other people do, just because, well, this is the way I want to grow them. The brandywines. I'm going to have some really nice brandywines growing. Might be difficult to see it when you're watching the video because oh, the other greenery in around. And this one has been growing here for quite some time, and that one down on the ground here, he's starting to lighten up, so it's probably starting to ripen now. And I don't see its tag, so hopefully I have it put somewhere. There is a third vine here, and you can see by the shape of the tomatoes it's yellow pear. I didn't get any ripe ones off those previous 3. Now this is the golden nugget, and you're supposed to pick them when they are, well, golden, but they will turn orange if you let them just sit there. Now this is the furthest north. I've got quite a few ripe tomatoes off that one already. I was expecting that these would be ripe this morning, but they're not. I think I showed you that I put out 2 pepper plants because Greta had to add pepper plants outside, and I lost one, but this one survived. During that weather, you see it was putting on flowers. Now this pepper, it was set before I put it out here. this one in here on the other hand. That one set after I put it out here. I'm going to change this up. Of course, originally I was putting a little cold frame here, but it's not going to be a cold frame. Because of the way the heat, the sun shines in here, it gets quite warm, plenty of warm to grow tomatoes, and I'm expecting that it will be plenty of warm to grow tomatoes even in a cooler year. So I'm going to do, it'll look something like this, of course. What I've got done here, I got a pile of kelp and then the wood chips put over it. Which is probably what I'll do here once the growing season's over. I'll take up all this vegetation and the plants, and I'll cover it in kelp. There's quite a lot of compost here already anyway, and then I'll chip some branches and cover it over in that, because I'm only putting transplants in here. So whether it be tomatoes or peppers or even some of the squash, it's all I'll be putting in here, so I can put that down through a rather thick layer of branch clippings. And another thing I thought about doing was putting a trellis up against the wall. I have some solar panels, so far up, once I get up and it won't be shaded by those bushes, I could put my solar panels there and run the wire down and go in through the window right there. Survival Lily over by Austria, or one of those countries over there, she was saying that they have a dry period now. What's up with the dry period? They never have dry periods. And that's what happened here, really. In Newfoundland, we're not used to having to water a garden, so now with climate change, things have changed, and we're going to have to modify our gardening techniques. At any rate, this is what's happening here, and this is why the plants are so small. But this is how the vegetable marrow grows. And I did get to pollinate one female flower. See, that one's growing. And being where it is, I mean, it's simple enough for me to protect it from the first few frosts. So I will get a full grown vegetable marrow. And I am going to try, if any other female flowers comes out, I'll try to get a few more pollinated on the other plants. Some of the pea plants I wasn't harvesting, and I got to come out now and get these dried ones for seed. But they have died and some of them survived. But I watered this morning. We've had a bit of rain, but very little, and the ground is so dry. Still very happy with how all of the California poppy's growing. I have a lot of it, and so there's going to be a ton growing there next year, and I might even be pulling some up because I can't have that many growing. Liatris, you see, they are growing so low, small. Last year there was only one on each plant because I put down just 3 bulbs. And now this one didn't send up a flower. This one sent up 3. And this one here sent up 1. But you can notice that it is more than one plant. I thought I put a liatris over there, but I don't know what happened. It didn't come up this year. These would just be green. This was the one of the more unhealthy echinacea plants that I had growing, but he's growing well now and he'll flower next year. But with the dry weather, you see, the onion, he's dried right out. Or maybe it was just it come to its time. So we'll leave them two here now and see what happens next year. There is a couple more that is just barely a onion stalk. But we'll see now come next spring what happens with those. More ton of California poppy, and here's something that made me happy. I believe this is called Haster Early Charm, and I didn't plant it here. I grew them here, I think I had them here last year. So they come up from a self-seed. So when they fade and the flower is quite dry, I am going to take those seeds and sprinkle them along here. And there is another one that would be the other one. It's another aster. I'll have to put it on the screen. The name is not coming to mind. There was the best of my purple echinacea, so it should send up a really nice flower next year. I'm continually not getting the inspiration at the right time to cut this down. I need to cut down all these flower stalks, but the leaves finally came back. You remember the some bug that I don't know because I've never seen the bug, but something come by and just ate every leaf off of this, and now it's foliated out again. There you see two liatris, and I think there might be only two liatris put here, because now there's one liatris here, there should be two. So there should be two liatris over there, two here, two on the spot where there's none growing, and of course then I had three left and put there in that other one spot. The bunching onions are doing wonderfully. Now I want to see if I can show you. There is one spot here where it's nice to show you how they grow. So here you are. See, this was just one seed, and over the course of the summer here now, it's divided itself and it's growing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bulbs right now. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bulbs, 6 bulbs. So they're doing wonderful. My wood sorrel, that is growing really fast. But I had some of this in salad and it is delicious. I have more pea plants here fading. Of course, I don't know whether it's because I just left these here to go to full maturity, or is it because of the lack of water. Don't look like I'm going to get any autumn butternut squash. It's got a flower there in the center and it might open a few flowers, but it's not going to be any time to actually get anything from it. Over beyond the pine tree, there are tomato plants growing here, kind of blending in with the rest of the greenery. So I had to come in close so you can see that, yes, there is actually a tomato vine here. I got a ripe tomato off of this. This brand new one? Oh, there's the tag. Yeah, just a small one, but I did get one. And there's flowers. So at this point, no, I'm not going to remove the flowers. I'm just going to let it go, and if I got green onion, I got green onion. That's just fine by me. And then that was on the far side of the rose bush, of course. On this side of the rose bush, I had Bloody Butcher, and I got, I believe it was 3 tomatoes. There's another small one ripening there. They do grow bigger than that. It's just once again the lack of moisture that's been around this year. And on the far side of the pine tree, of course, getting shade from the pine. This soil is not very deep, etc., etc. I mentioned that in other videos. But the tomatoes vines did hang on and are giving me tomatoes. So as I build up the soil along here, that's another thing that I can plant along this fence. And even when the grapevines are up and hanging over the fence and that, I could still have a tomato vine growing underneath, and it would just grow up through the grapevine, and you'd have grapes and tomatoes growing together. Not going to get a cucumber, I don't think. He started to grow, but that's all I got. That out there is another echinacea. Now here I'm happy with. This one set in early August, so he should grow to full size, no problem. And due to it's now the 23rd, what I'm going to do is cut the end. I'll bring the snippers out and do that a little better, but stop that from growing, and it'll put more energy into producing that pumpkin here right now. They're short because of the year we're having. Not a problem. Last year, if you remember, they grew really long with really huge leaves. I was looking at in there this morning. See, I have another one that's growing right here. So that's starting to enlarge. That one's set. And this one. So there's 2 on this one. So I should come out and snip that off and try to get 2 full-grown ones on there. Because the plants are small, once again, they're not going to be difficult, even if I do have to protect them from the first few frosts. So here's the second one that got pollinated, and it's about to turn its characteristic dark green now. So remember the trees that were here? Hopefully I can find the before on a video. I do have a before on a picture. So we cut down the 2 danger ones. The hydro guys come by and cut them down from the wire low enough that I can now go through and clear out all of this pole line area the way it's supposed to be, and then redo it with lower plants. And when I've got that far, see, there was a couple of trees back here that I cut down, and I cut down a couple of trees there by the corner of the greenhouse, because there was like 3 trees and all the branches were hanging out over. But now I can see more of what I got, and what I want to do now is replace this. I'm going to get out all my windows and see what I got. But I do have some cement. Now I've got a 5-gallon bucket full that I know is good, and then I got 4 bags that have been sitting around forever that if it's good, good. But I'll get some rocks and use that cement, hopefully, to build a retaining wall and then put the greenhouse up against it, right? So you'd have a rock wall that would act as a heat sink in the back of the greenhouse, and then just your window greenhouse coming out the front. Now that's that one. Of course, it will still get quite a bit of shade from the maple tree from midday onward, but I want to put a second section on, and it would, I'll go back here and I'll show you what it's facing. So you can see it's up against the cliff, right? And a lot of these rocks, I'll be able to get rocks from there, and then if I need more rocks, I just go to a where they blasted through a cliff to put the road through. In the second part of the greenhouse, it'll follow along the cliff face, so it will point this way. Clear open from the minute you see the sun will be rising over there. You get a little bit of shade from the pine tree, but from the rest of that, right up until later in the afternoon, it'll have full sun. I wasn't paying attention to these at all. I'm like, well, I'll just let them go and see what they do. A little bit of leaves that was on this, there's a little peck of green right there. So they lost their leaves, and I assume, once again, because their roots are not all that far down, and this is the drier area of the ground. But actually, this is the second one, so this one had more leaves on it. This is the one that had hardly anything, and it still has a leaf on it, but the ground was all along, like say, the roots are not down there that far, and I got a plan. You see, as I was saying, we got having very little rain, but my well hear that? There's water there. That's the ditch running out from the well. It's running constantly. I got the one pond made, second pond made there. In front, I'll still have the room to put the greenhouse there if I put a third dam here. So any water that doesn't soak into the ground from the first pond goes to the second pond, and any that don't soak into the ground from the second pond will go to the third pond. And that, since the ground slopes down here, it'll act just the same as the berms that are people talk about with the permaculture. And this whole ground will then be moistened up by the pond, which is slightly uphill from it. There's our first pond. I was out there one day and I heard a toad jump in there. I didn't see him, but I definitely heard him jump in. So they are taking advantage of this pond, and next year there'll probably be tadpoles in there. I've been picking blueberries for the last week since I put out that video, and there's still a lot of blueberries around. It's like you say, when you grow blueberries in your own backyard, then you just come out and you pick a container full, and then the next day you pick another container full, and there's still a lot of blueberries here. And surprising, like if I lift this up, you see the area is covered in blueberries, and the birds have been in around here, but they haven't come in a mass and ate them all. And some of them are really nice sized blueberries. I count 9 apples on this tree. Well, this is the best eating apple. Boy, are they delicious apples. Grown from seed, the tree was. One of the things I was thinking, back to those kiwi vines was to take a couple of these aspen, you cut a pathway in between, and then you bend them over and tie them together. You get them, train them to grow into an archway, and have the kiwi vines then grow over them. So from here, I'm thinking that it would be very easy for me to make a tunnel of from the aspens and have kiwi vines, a kiwi tunnel grow from here out to the roadway. This is mountain ash, and with the number of berries, this is an exceptional year for fruit, but they usually put on quite a few berries. I've got to go back online and find out what can be done with those, because I mean, if I pan around here, you see I've got two nice sized bushes there. There's another one down there, and you'll see another one before the video is out. Hide red. Now that has a lot of apples on it. It's organically grown, so you do have the fungus that gets on the skin, but that is no problem for those of us who don't mind just cutting that piece off. They don't get ripe, in normal years anyway, until middle of October. This one has an whole lot, and I didn't realize actually how many it had on there. A very abundant crop, but I have an apple tree to show you that's even worse. If you buy a new property, or sometimes when you've been on the property for a while and you've got a forest, you come along like, oh, I didn't know that was there. And I mean, this is a big tree. I think this is a dogwood, because the mountain ash grows as a smaller shrub, and a dogwood is a similar plant, as you can see. It's a nitrogen fixer, and what it usually does is grow in 2 or 3 trunks and grow almost the size of a small tree. It would still be considered a shrub, but the main trunks here now, you see they're dying. They got old, they're dying, but then they'll send up shoots from the base, and this is what's happening. So when I get to it, whatever year that is, I'll decide I'll probably cut out the old trunks and then leave these to grow up, and it will be more of a shrubby looking thing, but they will eventually grow up into big trunks like that. There's no berries on it, which is kind of a surprise. I did get the taste. I took 2 berries off of this, but there was a little clutch of berries here. I'm assuming a robin come along and took them. Not anything special to be writing home about with regard to taste. It's a blueberry. So that part, if you're going to grow high bush or low bush blueberries with respect to taste, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I'd say. California allspice, as the temperature got warmer, it stopped growing. You remember back in the spring where this come and it started to grow like crazy? We'll see now, come on fall, whether it will put on some more growth or will it just sit there and then put on a bit of growth again next spring. The maturing apricot, while looking quite healthy, it once again, it done the same thing. when the temperatures went up mid-July, or actually early July, it stopped growing and just sat there looking healthy but not doing anything. Just look at this monster of a tomato plant. There's two tomato plants here actually, and one of them I know is a Scotia. The tag is in among there somewhere, and I come along and I look in through. I expect to see if there's any tomatoes ripening. I should see the little red spot down there, and I haven't seen any. There is a lot of tomatoes growing on this vine. Maybe for scale, I'll put you back there. Remember, this is filled up with that topsoil I bought, and this thing taken right off, growing the healthiest kind, and it was put here after I had everything else planted out. I don't have anything ripe from it yet, but of course this is only August the 23rd, so lots of time for these tomatoes to ripen up, and I'm just going to let things go, let nature do her thing. And what's green here, I'll have green tomatoes of the ones that don't ripen, and I'll have red tomatoes of the ones that do. More of the kiwi vines. They're growing wonderfully. Now, I don't want to plant any of these out really until I'm sure they'll come back next year. So even the ones in the milk cartons, I think I'm going to leave them there, see if they come back next year, and if they do, then I'll plant them out. Then I'll have over winter to plan where I'm going to plant all of these things. The red mulberry, for the most part, they've all survived. I did lose a couple, like I was saying in an earlier video, but they have grown very nicely, and this is their first year, so you do wait a couple of years before you plant them out anyway. Back here is the black locust, which, even though I have this huge tomato plant growing over the top of them, they seem to be coming up through and fighting for the sunshine. I have more black locust seed to start next year, so I'm not concerned. I think there's 10 in here that's growing fairly well. Wish I could say the same thing about the honey locust. I mean, I got these three that's doing okay. This one is not. That one might come along, and this one over here. Do I have more seed? I don't know if I have more seed. If I don't, I'm going to order more, because I do want at least 10 honey locusts, if my memory serves me correctly. Coming along here, when I got these 5 plants, I was told that they were all currants. Got the one red currant, and then I had black currants, and I'll take a leaf. So just look at this. Not currants. Gooseberries, red like that, but they go, this is a purpley color that goes all the way to black. And this is the first year this thing is produced. Let's see if I can get you a good swing around. They were a little smaller on this side of the bush. And I just put these wires up here yesterday so I can get to work at this now and start to clear out the vegetation and put the mulch net around them. But hopefully that was good from the underside. And a view from the top side. So I am pretty pleased with this plant. Once I get this cleared out now and actually do some tending to it, it'll produce just as well as that white currant I have. And so we take the leaf. So you see, this is the leaf from the obvious currant bush. And these are the leaves from this gooseberry. Similar but not the same. Quite a lot, quite more of a indent right here. And even the older leaves. Let's see if I can get a hold of the leaf. They are actually smoother and softer than what you get from a currant. You see? I put them side by side, and you can see how the currant bush is much more, the veins are much more indented than what you would get on a gooseberry. And then this one turns out to be a gooseberry as well. This one hasn't been growing as well. In the beginning it was a tiny one, but I do have gooseberries on it. Now that I've showed you, I can start to pick the ones that are ripe. If you have a food forest and you got extra plants, throw them out wherever. See? Anywhere you got a space, this is a tomato plant. Now, I just picked up the sod here, dug out the sod, threw down a bunch of kelp, threw wood chips on top of it. That's what this is planted in. And it's producing tomatoes, growing just fine. Firecracker Goji, I'm glad I moved that one up here because it is doing much better than the Goji chinensis and even the Firecracker Goji by the Shed Wars garden. When I had the line trimmer out, I came in and I cleared down the vegetation around here. So this is the maple tree, sugar maple. So it's coming along. It will be probably entangled with the cherry tree once it gets full size, but oh well. This I found out is a pin cherry with its one and only cherry. So I can cut that down. And that is one of the other mountain ashes. I'm not going to cut them down until they're in my way, because I want to find out, like I said, is there anything I can do with those berries. And there's another mountain ash right there. The tent caterpillars that have come by, you see them around here, all around the area every year. They don't seem to be particular about what tree they're on. I've seen them on, well, this is the plum tree here now. I've seen them on the pin cherry trees, on alders, on birch trees. Just as long as they're broadleaf trees, they don't cause any lasting damage. I mean, it looks ugly while they're on there, but you don't, like I say, don't cause lasting damage, so I really, well, just let them do their thing as long as I don't have an infestation. It doesn't seem like they're bothering the plums, so I'm wondering if these plums will mature as well. That we'll have to wait and see. course there's thousands of plum on the rest of the tree. And this poor tree, you see that black lump? Black knot we call it. And it's so infested the tree. This tree is going to get a good cutting back when I harvest the plums. So I don't know what it's going to look like. We'll find out. Last year I was talking about if you want small beets, you're better off really packing them tight together, and then they'll just grow small and you'll harvest your small beets at the end. Because these are spaced out, there's quite a few large beets in here now. And in both beds are like that. I am just going to let them grow this year, and the ones I pickle I'll just cut up into squares or whatever. I'll slice them crossways and then I'll cut the slices into squares. But transplants, nah. I mean, I got nice beets, but it wasn't no advantage. They're no better off than the ones I direct sowed. So I'm going to forget transplanting. I thought about taking a before picture. I should have done it. I might have a video where you'd see in the background this massive mallow that was growing down this pathway. Along with some of the other stuff, I took 3 wheelbarrow loads of mallow and other weeds into the ends when I went down this pathway. The rhubarb I was just ignoring because I didn't really need any rhubarb, and so this is why you see some of the yellowy leaves here now, is because they were just overtopped, and this is what they do, right? Now I'm saying it's partly the overtopping by the other stuff that I was letting grow up and a lack of moisture. But now that I've got this cleared out, I'm expecting the rhubarb to flush up and I'll get 1 or 2 harvests again now before the growing season's out. But this bed is going to be, come October, I'm going to dig this all up, and then there's the 4 plants plant along. That's all from this variety, the one that grows big, and I'll put in a lot of compost in that, and so next year this will be huge. These here, they won't be here, and there's a row right over on the end of small ones. I'm still thinking that transplanting sugar beets might be a good idea though. Of course there's not very many here because, you know, they're snowshoe here. I come by and they had this all heat. But you can see some of the ones that I planted have gotten up to a nice size. And some of them, the reason why there's those little depressions there is because there is actually a beet plant there, but it's just a little tiny one. So I put on a really big bunch of malts there the other day. When you go over on this side to anything that the hair didn't touch, that's going to be a nice size of beet by the time October 10th or whatever it is comes that I harvested them last year. See, here's another one here. So now, I mean, they weren't growing for the last month because it was hot. They're going to start growing again now. I think this is the one with the biggest top on them right here. Speaking of which, I think there's something, those leaves are edible, but I'll check and see the number of things that I can do with them. After I took the garlic up, I realized I didn't have any radish seeds, and I also, in the stores, nobody's selling seeds middle of the summer around here because fall gardens is not a traditional thing. Kind of looks nice the way the bed is near there now, in my opinion, though. I've got a few plants growing and I've got it all mulched around. The first two of these, can't remember which one I put where, but at any rate, I think it was a slug that ate the first two. And I just have this one growing here that was planted later. But I think it was the zucchini I put up here. It looks like this is a zucchini. You'll see if that comes to anything and produces a plant, a fruit for me. Strawberries are starting to produce again. This is what they do. They produce early in July, and then they knock off for about a month, and then they start producing again in the fall. I've lost a couple of them to slugs, but not very many. I have a few amaranth plants growing around, and of course this is what they grow like if you let them grow up rather densely. They're more of a straight stalk and most of the seeds on top, which I think is a good thing. But here's an interesting looking thing now. So it's growing in the pot. The seed got in there somehow. The onions that I was trying to grow to seed, they didn't come to anything. But you see how bushy the plant is, and much darker leaves than that, but it is the same plant, red-rooted amaranth. And when I harvest the seeds from this now, I can calculate about how much I could get seed-wise out of a 1 foot by 1 foot square, and then see how it compares to, say, buckwheat or wheat or regular wheat or something like that. We're on the nice zucchini, and I've already harvested one. There's another one right here. You can let them grow as big as you want, but once again, that's one of those things. See, if I picked it when it was a little bigger than this, then it would be just the right size for a one-person stuffed zucchini, right? And there's another larger zucchini, Rhonda nice right there. There are several that's growing that are still small. That's not okay. If I was making a salad, I would like that better, I think. But I like to take this curly kale stuff and just dip it in salad dressing or some other dip, the same way as you would dip other veggies from a veggie platter. I have gotten a couple of heads of broccoli, and you see now it's putting out side shoots. And I had one over here. As far as cauliflower goes, this has been my problem with growing cauliflower. Quite a few times I've got a head to grow, but I didn't have a sensible enough leaf cover to blanch it. So I got this head right here, and as you can see it's turning red. There's a little tiny thing trying to form into a head right there. But out here in the sunny plot, I have these really big plants. Just checking to see if he was still alive. The Atlantic giant. Look at how tiny the plants are. Now the first plant that I tried female flower that I tried to pollinate. It didn't take. And I tried to pollinate this one, and I don't know yet whether it's taken or not. We will see. The thing about pumpkins is that if you don't get them mature, you can still use them as a summer squash. And just slice them up and fry them or roast them or whatever. But I'm going to have a nice size spaghetti squash this year. That makes me happy. Not only am I going to have one spaghetti squash, I'm going to have two. I thought there was a third one among here somewhere, but I can't find them. And I really do have something exciting to show you. You know where I'm planting the Russian mulberry, of course. And I was up there the other day. And I was wondering what the Osage orange was doing. So we shall see. Would you look at this? It's sprouted and is growing. Another one. This is the best of them. It grew quite a lot. This one now, a little bit of green starting to grow right there. So if you count that as sprouted, all but 3 have sprouted and are growing. Oh, and before I go, that's the apple tree that's still loaded right down with apples. So betwixt this one and the Ida Red, I'll have plenty of apples again this year. Give you a little swing by now. Last couple of days, 3 days, I was able to get out and clean up the garden. Hope you enjoyed the little tour. Make sure you hit that like button for me and subscribe to follow this food forest and experiments with gardening in Newfoundland. And I shall see you in the next video.